I'm Tuppence. So I attempted the Supernova technique a couple of weeks ago and it didn't work out the way I wanted. So I'm going to try and do it again, and this time I'm going to use this resin from the company Mouldd. And for my colours this time I've got some Octopus Fluid inks. Last time I used Resin epoxy pigments. So I've already mixed up 120 mils of resin, and I'm going to be dividing this into 6 little medicine cups. I've got 4 for my colour, 1 for an interference and 1 for white. So I'm going to put 10 in 5 of the cups and then 15 in one. 15 mils I'm talking about. Unfortunately though, I can't actually see the numbers on the side of these cups. I don't know if you remember me saying, or for those of you who don't know, I am developing cataracts. So it's difficult for me to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to mark the cups with a Sharpie pen so that I can see it a little bit more clearly. And then I just need to go ahead and put 10 in 5 of them and 15 mils in one. Okay, I'm just filling the last one up, and that leaves me a little over about 40, almost 50 mils left over, and that is going to be for my push pour. And I've managed to make a mess all over my mould. It wasn't the best idea to do that above the mould. So I'm just going to have a very quick clean up of all of these drips. Okay, that's a little better. Now, I'm not planning on putting this into my G3 curing machine, so I don't have that mat out, but I do want to be able to move this off of my work surface so that I can carry on doing other projects. So I'm going to use the acrylic plate from my UV resin lamp just to put that underneath, and then I can lift this out of the way without spilling the resin everywhere, hopefully. I better get these colours mixed up because this resin is starting to get pretty warm and thick. So just arrange my cups around, and these are for my colours. I'm using Octopus Fluid in Sunlight. These are new, so I've not used them before. So I'm going to put a few drops in there, and oh boy, that's coming out a lot quicker than I thought. So I think there's probably about 6 drops in there. Give that a very quick stir around to mix it all the way through. So I've got a yellow, and now I'm going to use a red. This is Bloody Mary. Pop a few drops in there. Now I know that's going to be a little bit more liquid than I thought it was. So I'm going to put 5 drops in there and see how that goes. And again, mix that in. That one's looking a little bit more orange than I'd like. Not quite as red as I want, but never mind. So now I'm going to use a green. This is Lime. Same process. I'll try about 5 or 6 drops and make sure that that is also thoroughly mixed through. And my last colour is Lagoon, which is a lovely blue. So hopefully all of these colours will blend, as long as I remember not to put the green and the red together, because that will make a nasty muddy brown colour. But the rest of the colours should blend nicely. Lovely, got all my colours. Now I want to make sure I don't get that red and green next to each other, so I'm going to move those. And now I've got to make the interference and the white. So I'm going to use a gold sheen interference. And I don't really know how strong to make this, so I'm just going to put a couple of scoops because there's 10 mil in here, which is not a lot. And give that a good stir, break down any of those lumps and make sure that's all mixed through. You can already see the gold floating on the top of it. It's really pretty. Right. And lastly, I need to mix up my white. I'm using a pigment paste, Supreme White. You can get that from Apex Resins. I will leave link to the products that I am using in my description box below, so don't forget to check that. You'll also find some discount codes there as well. So I want to make sure that I get this thoroughly mixed in. It's a particularly thick paste, and I want to make sure that I don't have any raw pigment left in there. So I'm going to give this a really good stir and make sure that that is all incorporated. Okay, now I am ready to start. And the first thing I need to do is create a dirty pour. So I'm going to pour all of my colours into this pot on top of each other. So I'm doing about half of what I've got in the cup. I'm going to do the yellow, I'll pop the red on. Well, I say red, although it looks more orange, but that is going to give me an orange. And then the blue, that should give me a purple. And then I've got the lime, turquoisey colour. And then I'm going to go back to the yellow and cycle back round. So once I've poured these all on top of each other, this is going to go around the outside of my coaster. And I have to say, these colours are looking very pale and very light. So I don't hold out much hope for getting the effect that I want. But hopefully whatever I do get will be pretty. This is going to be a pretty steep learning curve, I think. So add the blue. And then the rest of the green. Just dribble that down the side of the cup. Right. I think that's probably all of it. So I'll just move those out of the way. And that looks a mess in there, so now I can start to pour that around the outside edge of the coaster. And so far all I can see is green. I can't see the red at all. In fact, I can't see anything but green. So I suspect that this is going to take over. Alright, that's that. Then next I need to pour the interference, so I'm going to pour that just slightly inside. Go around. That's making a nice pattern anyway. Dribble that round. Keep it in a nice ring. That looks pretty good. Right, and then the white just slightly inside of that. Whoops, that came out a little faster than I wanted. So I'm hoping that's not going to be a big blob on the bottom. And then the rest of the clear resin, I'm going to pour that into the middle, and hopefully that's going to push towards the outside. And then it should close back up again. And I've got just enough to fill up the coaster. So excuse my hand for a minute, you will be able to see what I'm doing in a second. There we go. And that's it. I've just got to leave this now and then wait to see what happens. As I say, I am not going to put this in my G3. I'm going to leave this to cure. So I'll be back when I'm ready to demold. Okay, it has changed quite a bit, but I don't see any red. In fact, I don't see any other colour except for green. So let me see if I can get this out. It is still a little bit soft, but it'll be okay. It's good enough to demold. And no, there's no colours. I just don't have the colours. I still don't have the look that I'm going for, which is really annoying. But it definitely looks to me like a kiwi. I can't understand where the red has gone. So yeah, that's going to be back to the drawing board for that. I can't say I hate it. I quite like the colour green. I know it's not everybody's favourite, but I definitely need to do something to save this, because I can't have this looking like a kiwi. So I think it's going to be another image, another rub on to the rescue. Got a few blobs in there, bubbles, but yeah, I'm going to fix this with an image. So let me go find out what I've got in my stash. How about spring bunnies and hares? This is kind of spring green colour, so I think that's suitable. We are coming up to Easter anyway. So I'm going to cut a few out. I quite like this little bunny here, although I really like that bunny too. Is it bunny or is it a hare? I don't know. It's really cute. It would look great. But I think I'm going to go with this one. Yeah, I think I'm going to have this one. It just looks like it fits the space better. So I need to take the backing paper off, and that leaves the image on the transparent sheet, and I can lay that down. And now I'm looking at it, these came from Temu, and this is actually pretty cheap because there's a lot of areas here where the white that should have been removed hasn't been. So there's a lot of overspill. Whoops, I've got that stuck before I wanted to. I'll just gently pull that off. I've left a bit of the design behind, but it's okay. It's a single pebble. So now I'm just going to smooth that down. And I need a lollipop stick, or a popsicle stick as you like to call them, and rub that down. So I'm going to hold down my plastic this time so that I don't have a disaster and tear the image. So I'm just gently going to rub all over, and then I can pull back the plastic carefully. Hopefully I'll leave the design behind. So they do transfer really nicely onto resin, especially. Not so great on aquacast. Need to seal the aquacast first. I'm just going to peel back the plastic oversheet, and then, yep, looks like that's transferring really nicely. Okay, lovely. So there is my image. It's pretty cute, but it does need sealing in, so I need to add a top coat over this. And I think I'm going to leave it transparent. I'm not going to put anything on the back, but for now I need to get my gloves on and mix up my resin. I'm using Apex 1 coat, which is a thicker, fast curing resin, and I've mixed up 20 mils. I don't think I'm going to need all of that, but we'll see how I go. So I'm going to pour a bit in the middle. I'm going to use a brush to smooth this out and take this right to the edge. I want to make sure that it is coated all over, so I'm crouching down slightly so that I can see the light reflected in the resin on the top. That way I can see if there's any divots or if I haven't reached the outside. So this is going to take a couple of minutes. I'm going to fast forward this, and then I'm going to pop this in the G3, and I'm going to put it on about 80 to 90 Fahrenheit because it is a little bit colder in this room. It should cure in roughly 2 hours anyway. The top coat has cured, but it did something to the sticker. It's dull. It's definitely a different colour than it was before. It almost looks like the resin has soaked through it, but it hasn't. It's a plastic sticker, so I want to brighten this up. I'm going to add something in front of the bunny. It needs some more colour because at the moment it's just grey and green, a dull grey and green. So I think I'm going to use these tulips. That's going to add a pop of colour, and it befits the time of year as well. So this is a PET washi tape. I'm going to cut out the bit that I need. And luckily this is just long enough to go all the way across the front of the rabbit. Now this is not like a UV DTF sticker. This is more like a clear sticker, but it's just a solid image on it. So I do need to trim this around and just get this a little closer to the edge of the image. Otherwise I'm just going to be sticking one solid square across the front. And I don't need to be super accurate, just roughly around the edge is fine. I'm going to take that butterfly off. Let's see what this looks like. So it's wide enough, even if I just move it over slightly so that that tulip's not in his face. Now the coaster is irregular, so I am going to have to file off the edges so that I follow that shape, but that's fine. This has a thicker sort of clear acetate backing, so I need to just get that separated from the front. Peel back about half of the plastic and I'm just going to cut that off, and I've left the plastic on the rest of that so that I can hold that in place, and I can get this, hover it over the top and figure out where I want it to go, and then I can just attach one side and press it down, smoothing out the bubbles as I go. It's not so easy to not get bubbles under this. It doesn't stick quite as nicely as a UV DTF does, but you can peel this off, just not too many times, otherwise it loses its sticky. Right, so I'm smoothing all of that out. That's not too bad. I have got some micro bubbles under there, but they'll be all right. So I'm just going to press that out, make sure that is smoothed down. Now I'm going to cut the worst of this excess off. I've got some very small decoupage scissors, but I'm not going to attempt to follow those jiggly lines. Just get the worst of it off. To get a perfect cut that matches the shape of the edge of the coaster, I'm using a metal nail file or paper file, and I'm scraping away from the image along the edge of that coaster, and it cuts the plastic. It will also cut paper if you're doing decoupage. That way you get a perfect finish. So I'm just going to keep scraping until I've cut most of the edge, then I can pull away any of the pieces. Okay, just get that last little bit off, and there we go. It almost looks like you haven't added it onto the top at all. It follows the edge exactly. So there are a few little micro bubbles in here. I'm going to try and get some of those out. I'm just using the back of my nail to gently push the bubbles, especially the ones around the edge, out. But I'm not going to be able to get rid of all of them. And because of that, I think I am going to seal this in with a top coat so that it doesn't get damaged later. Although it's plastic, it is still pretty fragile. I really wish I'd thought to put this down before I put the previous top coat on, but never mind. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get some gloves on, and I'm going to mix up a little bit more of that Apex resin. I've mixed up 10 mils this time, and I'm going to use my gloved hand to spread that out, make it smooth across the whole of the surface. Hopefully this will be enough to cover everything. I'm going to crouch down, make sure that I can see in the reflection of the light that everything is nice and smooth and that there aren't any fish eyes, which are kind of holes or divots in the resin. If there are, I'm going to add a little bit more of the resin to top it up, make it nice and smooth. And again, I'm going to put this underneath my G3 and I'm going to cure this for 2 hours. And this is what it looks like when it comes out. So I guess my quest for a supernova pour is going to continue. But I hope you've liked this. If you have, please give me a thumbs up, comment, share, subscribe if you haven't, and you'll be able to come back and see what I'm going to make next time. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye.